Ken. Great to see you.
Always a pleasure to see you, Libby.
Yeah, always is. So I want to talk a little bit about standalones and historicals because it's so ironic that my good friends and people who liked A Bend in the River have also had great success with well, I don't say also because I don't know if Bend's going to be a success yet, but you've had great success.
I predict that it will, Libby.
Well, thank you. From your mouth. So you've had great success writing standalones that also happen to be historical in nature. And I love doing that. Sujata Massey, who I talked to earlier, also loves doing that. And Cara Black has just had a wonderful success with her historical standalone. So what is it about historical standalones that appeals to you?
Well, I remember the times I write about pretty well, for one thing. And the times I write about are periods, generally speaking, that either are important to me in my life, as in my first standalone, Ordinary Grace, or in my current standalone, This Tender Land, the Great Depression, which was a significant experience for my parents and for your parents as well. It intrigued me greatly to explore more deeply the realities of the Great Depression and to use that historical context to talk about issues that I think are still relevant today.
Well, it took you 20 court books, or no, not 20, maybe 17, 16, before
a lot
before you did write a standalone. Why was that?
Well, as you well know, there are benefits and pitfalls to writing a long-running mystery series. So there are 17 novels currently in my New York Times best-selling Gorko Connor mystery series. And so the advantages, I already have a ready-made audience for the works. When I write a story in the Cork O'Connor series, I know the elements that I need to include that readers will expect. So I'm never recreating the wheel. Those stories all give me a platform to talk about social issues. My publisher knows that every book I put out in the series will sell the backlist. So there are lots of advantages. But the pitfalls of a mystery series is that readers can tend to expect only that kind of a story from you. And if you veer from that, if you decide to write a standalone, it can be a very risky proposition. The very first standalone I ever wrote many, many, many years ago, called The Devil's Bed, sold more poorly than any book I've ever written because it wasn't a Cork O'Connor novel. So in anticipation of the next standalone, Ordinary Grace, I worked for a couple of years to prepare audiences for a book that wasn't going to be a Cork O'Connor novel.
What do you mean? What do you mean you prepared audiences? What did you say?
Every time I went on tour or any time I did an event, I would tell my audience, my readers, there's something coming that's not going to be a Cork O'Connor novel, but it's really good and you should read it. And it worked, and the success of Ordinary Grace then opened the door for me to do something like This Tender Land, follow it up with another historical standalone.
Standalones seem to be hitting their stride these days. Why do you think readers are accepting them more?
I think the truth is standalones have always done fine. And you know that it depends on when a writer enters the business, whether they're advised to do a series or whether they're advised to do standalones. I think it has less to do with an environment than simply with the work itself, what readers have been set up to expect from you. So let me throw that question back at you. You wrote the Ellie Foran series for a very long time. You created a number of books with your PI, Georgia. Why A Bend in the River? Why an historical standalone now?
Well, that's not my first one. It was,
I know.
Four of them before. I get bored. And I was a history major in college, and I just have the feeling that when you go back in history, sometimes it's easier because history is done. Now, we can interpret it any way we want, but the facts are there. Most people would accept the facts of history. And I enjoy going back and putting an ordinary person in extraordinary circumstances just to see how they're going to manage those circumstances. And some people, some characters turn out to be real heroes and other characters turn out to be real cowards. And I never know when I'm starting, what it's going to be. So that's kind of my pleasure and my surprise. Plus, I enjoy the research. I've written about topics that are very well researched, and I'm not adding anything to the research. I'm just interpreting it. I'm just writing about it. I'm just sort of fictionalizing it and putting a real person in there. So I get a lot of enjoyment out of doing that, really.
Your earlier standalones, I'm thinking now of Set the Night on Fire, Havana Requiem,
A Bitter Veil.
and A Bitter Veil, all historical, but they all had thriller-esque elements to them. They were still very much in the genre. This steps outside the genre. This is a very risky proposition for you. And I'm wondering, really, what at this point in time, and why A Bend in the River? Why a story set in Vietnam, a very compelling story set in Vietnam with two very compelling protagonists? Why this? Why now?
I went to Vietnam in 2019, and I always wanted to see the place where we lost 50,000 of our boys. What was it like? Why were we there? I mean, was there a compelling reason for us to be there? And it turns out that there wasn't. It was the old, if we don't do something, communism is going to take over, and Ho Chi Minh is a communist, and yeah, he was, and he is, and the government of Vietnam is still communist, but they sure act like they're capitalists these days, I'll tell you that. I don't know, they managed to have a capitalist economy. I'm not sure how they manage that, but they have. But when I knew I was going to write about the two sisters, I knew that this wasn't going to be a mystery. I mean, it was a mystery in the sense that any saga is a mystery. You want to find out what happens. And I do admit that I used a lot of suspense techniques in writing the book, like presenting them with conflicts, presenting them with, moral questions and moral ethics, and what did they do and how did they manage. So,
and some significant moments of a really scary jeopardy.
Yeah, well, you have to do that. So but I knew it wasn't going to be a mystery or a thriller. It was really going to be really a study of two different sisters and how they dealt with the war. So we'll see what happens. It comes out in a few weeks, as you well know, and I'm looking forward to having you chat with me at the Bookstall's Crowdcast virtual signing. And for anybody who wants to know, that's going to be the evening of October 6th. You get to see us again, and we'll go through this in more extended fashion.
We're going to have a blast.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Yeah, we can talk about all of this in much more detail. Thank you, Ken. I really appreciate you taking the time from what I know is your busy and busier schedule to be here.
My pleasure, Libby. Always my pleasure.
Thank you.